Are you being offered a pilot job in a different city and you're not sure whether it's better to move there or to commute? In this video, I'm going to break down the pros versus the cons of commuting. Happy holidays everyone, and welcome to the last video of 2019. What a year it has been in aviation, and we covered some great topics. If you're new to my channel, my name is Yaro and I take the mystery out of the aviation industry, so consider subscribing for more videos just like this. I want to close out the year with a video about commuting. Almost every pilot I know has had to commute at some point in their career, so you will run across this decision sooner or later as well. I'm going to explain what commuting is, why pilots choose to commute, the pros and cons of it, some commuting strategies, and share with you some pro tips and tricks that has helped me in my commuting career. Let's start with a definition of what commuting actually is. Commuting is traveling between your domicile, the city where you live, and your base, the city where all your flying starts and finishes. If you are based in a different city and you don't want to move to that city, your only other option is to commute. Pilots choose to commute for a variety of reasons. Some are personal and some are strategic, but every pilot has to make a plan that will coincide with their lifestyle and career goals. Personal reasons can include not wanting to move your family across the whole country to a different city where you don't have any friends or family, or you don't even like the city that you're based in and you never want to live there at all, or the city is too expensive and you can't afford to live there, or you just bought a house and the market conditions are down so you can't afford to sell and buy something new at your domicile, or you're simply tired of moving around. The last reason is why I choose to commute, because I'm simply tired of moving. I have moved every 2 years for the past 10 years and I've had enough. I wanted to have a city to call my permanent base and where my family can settle down and plant their roots. If you have watched my pilot relationship video, you have to think about your family as well and their happiness. So there are many personal reasons that can prevent you from picking up your whole life and moving to a different city, and pilots have to be aware of these limitations before accepting the job. Some regional airlines make it even impossible to commute because of the schedule and working 16 to 18 days a month, and that leads us to the topic of strategy. Strategic reasons to choose commuting will depend on your career progression and whether you think you will be changing bases in a year or two, or whether this airline will be just a stepping stone onto something bigger. Ideally, you want to establish your global career strategy first, and then either choose one, which airline you want to fly for, or two, find out all the bases for all the airlines in Canada and pick the one where you want to spend the rest of your career at. Then either move to that base or pick a city closest to the base where you think you want to live in. In Canada, those are Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, and Montreal. Then you want to work backwards and plan a path towards that goal. These days, many airlines hire through their regional airlines, so you want to research all the regional airline bases and find out if there are any in the city that you currently live, or close by, and then look for the job openings. Some bases will be more popular than others, and it's your job to figure out the politics of that company and figure out which base you will most likely start in. In Canada, that is Toronto. Most airlines funnel their pilots through Toronto because not everyone wants to live there, and therefore Toronto experiences a high turnover of pilots as they gain seniority and switch bases. So because pilots don't want to live there for a variety of personal reasons, most pilots choose to commute. Therefore, you roughly have to know how long it's going to take you to build up enough seniority to switch bases. Also be aware the bases where the company is headquartered in will take the longest to get because that base has the highest amount of seniority, as that's where the company started and that is where the majority of pilots will live. In order to be able to switch bases, a position has to become available, and the only reason that happens is if a pilot retires, they switch bases, or the airplane gets more aircraft and therefore needs more pilots in that base. So you have to take this knowledge and all these different variables into consideration when choosing to commute. As you develop your commuting strategy by learning more and more about the company, now let's talk about the pros and cons to help you make a better decision. The first pro is you get to live in your favorite city. We all have a favorite city, either because we grew up there or we have family there. It is the most beautiful, the safest, has the best schools. Whatever your reasons are, commuting allows you to live there. You can have a home and a pilot career at the same time and ensure that your family is also happy. For me, that's Vancouver. It's not only because I grew up here, but in my opinion, it's the most beautiful city in all of Canada. It has mild winters, ocean views, fresh air, and a great positive energy all year long. I have flown across every single part of this country, and in my opinion, Vancouver is the unicorn of Canada. The second pro is your family and their happiness. Moving your whole family across the country can be challenging or simply impossible. If you have a spouse that also has a career, most likely they will not be able to relocate for their work or commute or even work from home. And this is what makes the pilot career so unique. We as pilots do have that opportunity and flexibility that many careers don't offer. Moving kids to a different city and school and ripping them away from their friends and familiar surroundings can be very difficult on kids. Of course, if you have no choice but to relocate, then that's what you have to do. But if you do have a choice to commute, your family will thank you. As pilots, we are used to being always on the road, but your family is not. They need stability and a routine, and I would rather sacrifice one of my days off than disrupt their whole world. If you're planning to change bases every several years as you work through the regional airlines and then move on to something bigger and have to work through those bases until you get to your ultimate goal, it might not be worth moving so many times. This is what I did. I started Toronto based with my regional airline for 3 months, then I moved to Calgary base and was able to commute from Vancouver to Calgary for 3 years. Now that I moved on to fly the 737, I am back commuting to Toronto from Vancouver. Now I have to build enough seniority to be able to hold Vancouver base, then I will transfer and my final goal of living at my base will be achieved. So all that sounds lovely and dandy, but what is your life going to actually look like during those long years of commuting? The first con of commuting, as the name suggests, you have to commute to and from work. If you have a pairing that starts in the morning and there are no flights to get you there that early, then you have to come in the day before on your day off. Sometimes it works out that you can commute in on the first day of your pairing and commute home on the last day of your pairing, but those are rare and you will end up being not able to commute on one side of the pairing. This can result in spending 3 to 4 of your actual days off commuting to and from work. So if you typically get 14 days off a month, now you're down to 10 or 11. The second con is if you do have to spend a night at your base, you will be responsible for your own accommodations. Since you are based there, it's not the airline's responsibility to provide you a hotel because they expect you to live at your base and you are choosing to commute. If you're lucky, you can find hotels for $100 a night, and therefore you'll be spending $300 to $400 a month out of your own pocket just to commute to work. The third con is that not all airlines offer a free commuting policy. This means you have to pay a small fee for the flight there and back. So the expenses can add up, and if you don't have enough pro reasons to commute, it might not be a good financial decision. My airline does have a free commuting policy, and that is the only reason I was able to continue commuting for as long as I have. Lastly, let me share with you some pro tips to make your commuting life easier. The first is how you bid for your schedule. I personally bid heavy 4 to 5 day pairings with early checkouts. This ensures I maximize my flying in the shortest amount of time possible, and because of that, I typically only get 3 pairings a month. This results in around $330 a month in hotels, but because of the early checkouts, which are around 4 to 8 p.m., I still have 1 or 2 flights to get me home that same day. This kind of flying is very exhausting, but it gives me 5 to 8 days off in a row, which I can use to accomplish many things at home. The second tip is to find cheap accommodations. Airlines have a ton of discounts with most hotel chains, and it's up to you to do your research and phone around all the hotels to find the best rate. If you're finding that you need more than 3 hotels a month, then you might want to look into a crash pad. Essentially, it's a mini hostel for pilots with 4 bunks per room, and you pay around $300 a month for your own bunk. This allows you to come and go anytime you want, and you don't have any limitations on how many nights you can spend there. The downside is you don't have your own privacy in your own room, but from what I'm told, usually you're the only one there, so it's not bad. The last pro tip is to make your commute as easy as possible. If you can, live close to the airport to minimize your driving time, ideally less than 1 hour. Ensure there are many non-stop flights to your base offered by many airlines throughout the day. This will give you flexibility to make sure you get to your base if the flights are sold out. A big benefit is if your own airline flies non-stop to your base, because then you have the opportunity to use the jump seat. This is an extra seat in the flight deck that you can use as a commuting pilot on your own airline. If the flight is completely sold out, this could be your very last resort to make it there or not. The main thing you want to do is avoid multi-leg commutes. If you need to use 2 commuting flights to get to your base, that is a huge risk of something going wrong. Either the flight sells out, or there could be a mechanical issue and then you can't make the second flight. In conclusion, at some point in your airline career you will commute. The question is, for how long? There are pilots who commute their whole career because they simply want to live in a smaller town where they can buy larger property or parcels of land, or that is where they grew up, or they simply don't like big cities. Whatever your reasons, there's nothing wrong with commuting as long as you make a plan, have a strategy with your family, and can financially afford it. I hope this video helped you get more familiar with commuting and whether this is the right option for you. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, support the channel by trying the best tasting coffee on the go, and I'll see you in the new year.